So let's talk about word study basics. I'm going to give you two huge points to keep in mind when you do a word study. One, use a concordance that's keyed to the Greek and Hebrew words. In other words, don't just use an English concordance for a particular version that only takes you to other English verses. You want to be able to get into the Greek and Hebrew. You go, I don't know how to do that. I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, but here's why you want to key it to the Greek and the Hebrew. A, English Bibles can translate different Greek words with the same English word. So an example of that is in that passage in John 21, where Jesus is restoring Peter. He says, Simon, son of John, do you truly love me more than these? Yes, Lord. He said, you know that I love you. Here, the English word is love, but in the Greek, it's two different Greek words. You would not know that if you just had an English concordance. Now, does it matter? Well, that's what you have to figure out. Does this switching back between agape and phileo throughout the passage, does it really matter? Some would say it does. Some would say it's just a stylistic difference. But at least you know there's a difference. The opposite of this is English Bibles can translate the same Greek word with different English words. So, for example, Hebrews 5:11, we have much to say about this, but it's hard to explain because you are slow to learn. Now, just in the English, you might think, oh, those poor Hebrews, they have a learning disability, maybe dyslexia. Well, if you do a word study on that word, the Greek word, you find out it only occurs one other time. The next chapter, Hebrews 6:12, it says, we do not want you to become lazy. Same word. So maybe their slowness to learn isn't dyslexia, maybe it's laziness. But you wouldn't even know that unless you could get back to the Greek, right? So, one, do your word studies with a tool that can take you back to the Greek and the Hebrew. Two, here's what I want you to understand. Words have a range of meaning that's determined by context. So, just like in English, for example, the word cold, if you look up the word cold, it's going to have a general meaning about temperature. But the word can be used in different contexts. For example, boy, it's cold outside. That must mean that the air is below a certain temperature. Boy, she was cold to me today. That's dealing with personality. Cold colors look good on you. Blue, that's dealing with a color. I'm sneezing because I caught a cold. Now we're out of the range of temperature. Now we're into getting viruses. So same English word, but it's the context that determines within that range of meaning which meaning that word has. Now, that is not only true of English words, but Greek and Hebrew. So let me use the word dead. Jesus says, let the dead bury their own dead. Now, if you were studying that, somebody in your Bible study might say, "Boy, I wish we knew the Greek and we would know this that what precisely those words mean." Well, you know what? When you do know the Greek, you look up the word dead. It's nekros. It's the same word in both occurrences. Let the dead bury their own dead. It has a basic meaning, lifeless. But the context requires us to say, he must mean let the spiritually dead bury their own physically dead. It's the context, not the definition of the word, even in the Greek. So be careful that you don't do what a lot of preachers do. They'll study a passage or they're teaching on a passage and they'll say, now that word in the Greek, and they'll pronounce it in Greek. Yes, I know Greek. They'll say, I know Greek. And then they'll read the Strong's definition. And then the assumption is, well, because they can look it up in Strong's, they must have deeper insight that it must mean the Strong's definition in that verse. No, it might not mean that exact nuance of what what Strong's is saying. It's the context that helps you. All right. Now, let me show you this tool called eSword. It's a free program. You go to or Google e-sword.com. You can download it for free. It used to be only available on PCs. I think it's available for Macs now. It might be slightly different, so you'll have to play with it. And what you get is it comes with a free King James version, and you can then download a free ESV version. So when you open it up, these little tabs up here will have King James and King James Plus. You then go to download, then Bibles, and you can download the ESV for free. I think other versions you might have to pay $20 for. But so far, I haven't paid a cent for this program, and I've got ESV, King James Plus. Now, what this allows you to do is a word study in the Greek. So let's do, and the Hebrew. Let's do this. Let's open it. So here's how you navigate. Here's your Bible. And we're going to open it to John 6, verse 44. John 6:44. No man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him. Now I'm going to study that in the ESV. All right, ESV is a little friendlier. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up on the last day. So let's introduce a Calvin-Arminian debate. Is this speaking of irresistible grace being drawn? God always gets his man. Is this a strong drawing of the elect? Or is this the general wooing where God is trying to draw everybody, but it can be resisted? So a question would be, in other occurrences of this word in the New Testament, is it a gentle drawing or a strong drawing? So how do you find that out? Well, you do have to switch. Okay, so if you click on the verse, notice the verse references are here. This is highlighted in, I don't know what that is, chartreuse. All right, and then you open King James Plus. So now I find the highlighted verse and I read it, and you notice there's a little number by every word. That's the Strong's number keying it to the Greek. And I come across the word draw, and there's the number. You don't have to know Greek. All you need to know is the number, 1670, helkuo. Now, to do a word study, you want to right-click, not on the English, not on the English, not on the English. Did you get that? Not on the English, on the number. If you right-click on the number, you have an option here to quick search that number. Now, you can do it just in the book of John, or the entire New Testament, the entire Old Testament, or the entire Bible. Now, if you do it on the entire Bible, let's do that. You're only going to get the New Testament because it's in Greek. It's going to open up a box, and look at this. We discover that that exact Greek word appears 8 times in 8 verses. It's in the book of John, Acts, and James. And here are the verses listed for you. Now, what I like to do is keep the box open and switch my main text back to ESV, so I don't have to deal with all the numbers of the King James. And what I can do is a word study. So let's start at the bottom, James 2:6. And what I'm asking is that word a strong word or a gentle word? But you have dishonored the poor man. Are not the rich the ones who oppress you, and the ones who drag you into court? Wow, that seems to be like a pretty strong thing. All right, so I'd make a little note on a piece of paper, James 2:6, strong. All right, Acts 21:30. Here we have, then all the city was stirred up, and the people ran together. They seized Paul and dragged him out of the temple. Wow, that seems pretty strong. So I'd make a little note there. Acts 16:19. But when her owners saw that their hope of gain was gone, they seized Paul and Silas and dragged them into the marketplace. So there's why they're being dragged against There will, at least in these cases. So you're going to do that. Then when you get into John, you've got dragging of fishing nets and so forth. Now, this one may throw you off. I think all the way up to 18:10, it's a very strong dragging. John 12:32, Jesus says, "And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself." So now, see, the Calvinists would go, all these other occurrences are strong draggings. The Arminian might say, well, when I am lifted up from the earth, I will draw all people to myself. And this seems to be in the context of salvation. And the John 6 verse seems to be in the context of salvation. It's nice that we look at fishing nets and Paul being dragged, but this is closer to the context. Now, the Calvinists would come back and say the all people. Yes, the word is the word. You can talk about the word that draw, but the word for all people, that's referring to not just Jews but all kinds of people. So the debate goes back and forth. But I want you to see how to do a word study in the Greek without knowing Greek by using eSword. One of your exercises will require you to download this, answer some questions, play around with this program, then go on to the quizzes and answer the quiz questions with your answers. So have fun with that. It's a great program. I use it every day.